So when it comes to picking the best low spin driver of the year, it's a bit of a complicated conversation. The one thing that wouldn't make sense is to pick the driver that is the lowest spin. So for example, I am not holding what I've found to be the absolute lowest spin driver in the building at the same loft. It's not that. It's also not going to be the low spin driver from a company that makes a nice stable driver, but ultimately that low spin model isn't really that low spin. So in my opinion, a low spin driver that's actually really good has to be able to produce really good low spin for someone while maintaining some of those stable properties. So if it's too high on one thing, for example, it's super low spin, but the forgiveness is crap, or it's actually quite forgiving, but the spin reduction is sort of inadequate. Neither of those things to me make a good all-around low spin driver. The one I've picked, in my experience, hitting it myself and seeing a lot of people be fit and test them for the last number of months, the Callaway Elite Triple Diamond is the one that I think does the best of both worlds. What you'll see is actually a true representation of the type of person who needs a low spin driver. My swing changes are producing a little bit more dynamic loft. I am tending to get a little bit of a thin strike as my miss, but I don't want to just chase distance and get the absolute longest driver. I want to reduce that spin rate, but I want to make sure I keep the ball in play. I may have made some comments about the normal Elite driver being not attractive, particularly at address. This one's better. It's kind of odd that they went gloss all of a sudden, but I do think the sole looks better. It looks a lot like most Triple Diamond Callaway drivers have for the last number of years. That's an interesting one to start. So face a little bit open, strike kind of low and a tiny bit heel. A very reasonable spin rate at 2,500. Hit that one better. Very consistent spin. So that's one thing that, despite how much I really don't enjoy listening to AI technology this and 7 more yards that, I must say the Callaway face for a number of years, even on the Triple Diamond, it does a pretty good job of keeping the ball speed, launch, and spin pretty consistent across different strikes. So that one was a bit of a toey strike, which with a low spin driver, normally I'd be like, oh boy, I'm about to get something pretty nasty. It actually performed not that different than the previous swing. So I would blame myself for that one. Keeping the spin under 3,000 though on a slightly thin strike and a way open face. My personal method, if I can't get someone's spin rate under 3,000 with this particular driver in its low spin setting, I'm going to say something swing-wise. I mean, I pretty much say something swing-wise to everybody, but in this case, you don't want people to be chasing something, unnecessary that just will begin to be totally on the edge, and then when they square one up or they slightly close the face, the result is just too unstable. So that's a better swing. Again, when the face is relatively square, it's amazing how consistent the spin rate of this is, and the ball speed's been very good relative to club head speed, so that's as good of a strike as I can do. The flight is kind of perfect. Now that's one I'm glad I hit, because there is no way in the world that a 19 millimeter toe, 7 millimeter high strike with a driver like this should even be off the ground. It's kind of hard to describe how decent that really is. When I hit that, I honestly thought the ball would go 150 yards, like dead right into the trees. So for whatever they've done, probably more of a face technology here versus a CG location thing, I find this driver overperforms on that. It's a nice drive there. So probably for my part, a tiny bit different face angle, slightly higher strike, although not by much. Again, the spin rate is staying in a nice kind of 300-400 RPM window. So that one I've hit like a little bit in the toe and I've faded a little bit. Again, the ball speed is extremely good. The spin rate is very consistent. Tried to hit that one a little bit thin, which I did. So even when you kind of get the one, and I didn't really hit up on that one as much, so if you get a steeper player, that wasn't hit up on at all. get a steeper player, sometimes it's hard for them to get a reasonable spin rate. Of course, my launch angle comes down when you hit down a little bit more and hit a little bit thin. That should just be a good overall drive. Yeah. I may have swung a bit faster because I was feeling confident in it, which is not something I would say about most low spin clubs. It's a little different strike, so I haven't really hit one high of center yet. The spin rate is so close to even other ones that were slightly thin or slightly open. Really good too. So again, we got really thin on that strike. The spin rate really didn't change that much from one that was actually 10 millimeters higher. Sound and feel, I actually really like. I think anyone that likes the sound and feel of a Callaway driver, it's what you're used to. I think it's somewhere in between. It's definitely not dull like the TaylorMade is, and it's maybe a little bit more muted than Titleist would be. Good strike, but a tiny bit open face. I mean, it's a driver that I could play, which is probably the best compliment I could give it. Squared up a little better, spin rate comes down a bit, even still a little bit thin. Spin rate is very, very nice. So if you're chasing ultra, ultra low spin, no, I don't find this to be the lowest spin driver of the year. TaylorMade QI35 LS, particularly in the lowest loft, that thing is a freak show in terms of spin. Most stable driver that is in the low spin category is a G440 LST, but it's not all that low spin, so you got to keep that in mind. I think the Titleist GT3 is somewhat in this Callaway's range. It's pretty good in terms of all these type of factors, but I do find its ability to lower the spin not quite as good as the Elite. Stability-wise, probably pretty similar, but the best of both worlds in the low spin driver category is this thing.